What's up? Welcome to the Valenti VOD. I'm your perfect and humble leader, Chris Valenti. The former Prime Minister of Israel has come out and said, yes, Israel is committing war crimes. Yes, Benjamin Netanyahu is a genocidal maniac. Yes, the Israeli government is a bunch of fucking Nazi thugs. And now, just so you understand, this is the former Prime Minister of Israel. This is the Benjamin Netanyahu of the past. And I want you to prepare for these fucking Zionist Nazis to come out and accuse the former Prime Minister of Israel for being anti-Semitic. They will. The ADL will come after this guy. Anybody who talks badly about Israel will be punished by Israel, even if you're the former Prime Minister. So we're going to watch this. He's got a little interview on CNN. It's like 15 minutes long. We're going to watch through it, and we're going to see what an actual decent human being sounds like when they're, challenging Israel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It costs you nothing, and it helps me immensely. This is real independent media, so if you do want to help the channel financially, there's a couple of ways you could do it. You can become a patron on Patreon for $5. You can become a member on YouTube for $5. You could buy some Valenti videos merch right down below, and you can use a 40% off discount code for the Ground News Vantage subscription, located in the description down below. Without further ado, let's watch.
And opposition to the war is growing inside of Israel as well. Among those speaking out is the country's former Prime Minister, Ahud Olmert. In a new opinion piece for Haaretz, making headlines around the world, he says Israel is committing war crimes. And he joins me now live from Tel Aviv. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for taking the time. Your criticism of this government and how it's been conducting this war is not new. You have been outspoken on that front for many months now. But going to this level and saying that Israel is in fact committing war crimes is something entirely different. I want to read from your piece. You said, what we are doing in Gaza now is a war of devastation, indiscriminate, limitless, cruel, and criminal killing of civilians. We're not doing this due to some disproportionate outburst by some soldiers in some unit. Rather, it's the result of government policy, knowingly, evilly, maliciously, irresponsibly dictated. Yes, Israel is committing war crimes.
Now, by the way, you shouldn't need Ahud Olmert to come out and tell you this, okay? The International Criminal Court has already issued an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu for committing a genocide. Every single genocide expert on planet Earth agrees that it's a genocide. Every humanitarian aid group on planet Earth agrees that it's a genocide. It has been a genocide since day one. The entire reason why Benjamin Netanyahu allowed October 7th to happen, because he did, was so that he would finally have a valid excuse to go full genocide on the Palestinians, which is what he's always wanted, because he's genuinely a soulless, evil fucking rat.
What has changed in your view, and why are you speaking out publicly and globally now?
Well, as you said before, I've been speaking for a long period of time. And I criticize the Israeli government and particularly the lack of any vision about what comes next. What are we going to do in order to end the war, release the hostages, and start to move it towards some kind of a political horizon that will start perhaps a process that will end the military confrontations. What happened particularly in the last few days was the statements made by Israeli cabinet ministers, the leading cabinet ministers, that say we should starve Gaza. What is it if not a war crime? I mean, how can a serious person representing the Israeli government can spell it out in such an explicit manner that we should starve Gaza, that there should be no supply of basic fundamental humanitarian needs to a couple of million people living there. They are terrorists that we need to fight, but this is not a war against Hamas. This looks more and more like a political war of the Israeli Prime Minister and the cabinet and the group of thugs which are now representing the Israeli government inside Israel and across the world, are committing actions which can't be interpreted in any other way.
As we have noted, calls of condemnation and threats of additional sanctions and a reevaluation of trade partnerships among
See, sanctions don't work on nations like Russia, right? When Trump is like, oh, we're going to put sanctions on Russia to punish them for what they're doing to Ukraine. Well, that doesn't fucking matter because Russia is in the BRICS nations and they can trade with 48% of the world population. They don't give a fuck. But Israel is reliant on Western money.
Traditional allies have now been dominating news headlines over the past several days. I want to play sound from German Chancellor Merz on this as well.
You're going to ask a German to speak about Israel? This is just audibly going to sound fucking strange.
What the Israeli army is now doing in the Gaza Strip, frankly, I no longer understand what the objective is. To inflict such suffering also on the civilian population, as has increasingly been the case in recent days, can no longer be justified on the grounds of a fight against Hamas terrorism.
We even hear from President Trump, who has not gone to those lengths, but has said that the war should come to an end. When you have allies like that making comments to this degree and even threatening implications for trade relationships, what does that mean for Israel and its increasing what appears to be isolation on the global stage?
Anybody hear the delay? I can hear the delay of this woman's mic.
Looks like it, and it's very sad. I must say that I now listen to what the new Chancellor of Germany said, and I know he's a friend of Israel. As Prime Minister Sturmer or President Macron.
Dude, a Chancellor of Germany that is a friend of Israel is so strange to me.
And Prime Minister Carney and Prime Minister Meloni, and the ministers and prime ministers of so many other countries. And President Trump. President Trump is held by most of the Israelis to be a great friend of the State of Israel. He also says that we should supply the basic fundamental needs of the people of Gaza. They can't starve. And I think that the international condemnation of the policies of Netanyahu.
I know, Jermaine.
And the group of ministers, the messianic extremist right-wingers that are now leading the government and dictating to Netanyahu what should be done and how it should be done, I think that they have to listen to what the international community says and to change direction. And I personally hope that President Trump will take the lead in making this effort. I think that no one but him can actually summon Netanyahu to a place they both love very much, which is the Oval Office facing the TV cameras, and he should do it and say to Netanyahu, enough is enough.
No, that's not what he should do. What Trump should do, and he'll never do this, but what Trump should do is invite Benjamin Netanyahu to the Oval Office for a meeting. And then as soon as Netanyahu is sitting in his chair and the cameras are on, have the fucking door kicked in by UN peacekeepers, put cuffs around that fucking Nazi's wrist, and throw him in Guantanamo Bay. That's what you should do. Arrest the war criminal. Put him on a Nuremberg-style trial, and let's just see what happens at the bitter fucking end.
It's time to end the war. It was a time long time ago, but it certainly is today, to end the war, to supply all the humanitarian needs of the people that are uninvolved in terror, and there are many of them, and release the hostages and move forward. It's time.
Why do you think he hasn't done that thus
Because
far?
he hasn't killed every last Palestinian yet, and he wants to kill every last Palestinian so that he can build some beachfront property in Gaza, because that's how Trump and Netanyahu look at Gaza. They literally refer to it as prime real estate. Trump said he wants to build the Riviera of the Middle East. Don't you remember the AI-generated Trump? Gaza, #1. Peace and love for everyone. Trump has said himself that he wants to conquer Gaza. He wants to conquer Gaza, okay? And I say this again with full intention and complete and utter disrespect. If you still support Donald Trump, you are an inferior human being.
An opportunity when he was in the Oval Office just a few weeks ago, and by all accounts seemed to embarrass the Prime Minister by announcing that he's going to be speaking with Iranian officials about a potential nuclear deal. Why not do this then?
Look, you know, how many people do you know in the world that can interpret and analyze President Trump? I'm not one of them. I don't know. I think that he cares, and I respect him for this, because
You're a fucking idiot, Gramps. You think Trump cares about either Israel or Palestine? You're a fucking idiot. If you really want Trump to come, just buy him a jet. Buy Trump a jet, and then maybe he'll fucking help you. You gotta buy that fucker.
He spelled it out in numerous occasions in the last couple of days in Washington. So he didn't do it a couple of months ago. It's time to do it now, and I hope he will do it. I really certainly think that he is the only person, perhaps, that can force the Israeli Prime Minister to come to terms with reality.
He won't.
And with the moral reality of what is being accomplished by his government.
These are serious charges, as you know, that you are leveling against your government and the Prime Minister. How should they be held accountable? How should they be treated? What charges, if any, should they be facing from their own population?
Genocide.
Or from the international community?
You know, it's not enough that I'm accusing them. You now want me to be the judge and the executor. I hope that this government will disappear as soon as possible. I believe that the majority of Israelis are sick and tired of these policies, of these statements, of what the terrible damage that was caused by this government to the moral integrity of the state of Israel and the people of Israel. And I hope that the movement of protest, which is expanding rapidly in all of the streets of our country, in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem and in other parts of the country, that will gain additional force in order to create the necessary political process that will lead to immediate elections and the removal of this government.
Mr. Prime Minister, one thing that I hear repeatedly from people who are very critical of Prime Minister Netanyahu, Israelis I'm speaking of, is that conversations like this and articles like yours that speak to a global audience only embolden support for Prime Minister Netanyahu, even as you see in response to the condemnation and the concern from traditional allies. His response is one of defiance. So what do you say to those who worry or criticize these types of actions that you're taking as only emboldening this government domestically? Yeah,
this is a typical dilemma of this is the typical dilemma for people like me and those who share with me my opinions. Is if you're damned if you say, you're damned if you don't. So the question is, what is my moral choice to start with? And my moral choice is to speak up in the most explicit manner. I do it inside Israel. The articles you quoted was published in the very important magazine in Israel, Haaretz, to start with, to the Israeli people. And I speak on the media here, and many, I'm not alone. There are millions of people that share my opinion, and in fact, in spite of the impression made that the support of Netanyahu is emboldened, the fact is that in all of the polls which were taken over the last few months, including in the last few days, the power of his coalition in the public opinion is eroding rapidly.
Yeah, it's slowly getting worse, but still 97, no, sorry, not 97, it was 78. A recent poll said that 78% of Israelis who were polled don't think that the Israeli government has gone far enough in terms of the genocide in Gaza. I'm sure that number has diminished slowly over time, but you're not talking about like a minority of Israelis that support the genocide. It is the overwhelming fucking majority of them.
So if we will succeed with the assistance and the moral support of Western leaders from Germany, from Great Britain, from France, from Canada, from Italy, from Holland, from other countries, and of course the American president, to change the tide that will bring the demise of this government very close.
And yet there's still a solid 21 seats that still vote for Prime Minister Netanyahu in every poll, even among the most recent. Why do you think that is?
Exactly.
Look, there is a political base that is loyal to the Prime Minister, but this political base seems to be weakening on a daily basis. 21 seats are entirely insufficient to form a government. So it's true that Netanyahu presently entertains a certain slight majority in parliament, but this is a reflection of elections which took place almost 3 years ago. Now we're in a different situation, and the public opinion speaks up, and it's going to grow, and it's going to become more aggressive in the manner of its opposition to the Israeli government. And again, it's very important that people will know that the voice of Israel that come across is not the voice of Ben-Gvir or Smotrich or even Netanyahu. The voice of Israel is the voice of millions of people that think like me, that think that we have to stop the war, that think that we have to release all the hostages rapidly, that think that we have to make sure that no uninvolved people in Gaza are hurt because of the expansion of these military operations, which is entirely unjustified and doesn't serve any important interest of the State of Israel at this point.
And as recently as today, a released hostage who I interviewed, and that interview will air tomorrow, time and time again I hear from the hostages, and I've spent a lot of time with them, have said some of the most fearful moments of their time in that brutal captivity has been when the IDF has been attacking, because they are concerned, and they were concerned about inadvertently being killed.
Yeah, and because the IDF doesn't give a shit about these hostages. The IDF has blown up dozens of their own hostages to the point where there's no fucking body left. They don't give a fuck about their own people. They allowed October 7th to happen. They don't give a shit.
And those attacks, and at the same time their captors became more aggressive towards them as well. I do want to ask you about the disproportionate civilian to combatant ratio that's only grown and expanded over the course of this war, now Israel's longest in its history. What are you hearing? What are your concerns about the conduct? I know you write about some of this in this piece, but if you could just sum up your concerns about the conduct of some of these soldiers, their exhaustion at times, the concerns about those that refuse to serve now, and criticism that they at times appear to be leaderless in their conduct in Gaza. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, correct. You know that more and more in the general population of Israel, and of course also in the army, which is made up mostly of reserve soldiers. So they are citizens like me, except that they are now serving as reservists in the army. They are becoming sick and tired of what appears to them to be something which is totally in opposition to what they believe is
Who is
the
this
real
old man?
interest
This
of
is the former prime minister of Israel. Like, he's the guy who used to be Benjamin Netanyahu. He's the former leader of Israel, saying what Israel's doing is committing a genocide.
Israel. And when the soldiers are sick and tired, and many of them seem to not want to carry on, many bad things may happen in the battlefield and outside of the battlefield. And I hope that this will be another ingredient in forcing the Israeli government to stop it right now.
Mr. Prime Minister, in just the last few moments that I have you, I do want to get you to weigh in on your views on where things stand with Iran negotiations and the increased reporting we've seen that if in fact these talks...
There's no negotiations, dude. Israel is preparing to bomb Iran, and Trump said himself that he will lead the charge in a war against Iran, a boots-on-the-ground invasion. So to all my to all my soldiers here in the chat, to anybody watching this that's active duty, I hope you're ready to go fight and die in Iran because Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu want you to.
Fall through that Israel may be prepared to launch imminently. Do you think that is what Prime Minister Netanyahu would do?
Look, you have to distinguish between what he can do and what he says. The rhetoric of Netanyahu is well known, and we are all acquainted with the periodical threats that he poses to the Iranians. I still believe that there is a good chance that President Trump will succeed in these negotiations. He said just the other day that there are good signals coming from these negotiations. Obviously, Iran is a threat and is a danger, not just to the state of Israel, but to the entire region and perhaps to the entire world. And
oh, yeah?
No one...
Israel isn't? Iran is the threat to the region, not Israel, who has literally killed millions of fucking people since 1948. Not Israel, who has repeatedly committed a genocide on its neighbors. Not Israel, who has used Mossad to gather blackmail on every fucking world leader around them. Not Israel, who has like 1 or 2% of the world population, but somehow controls 90% of the world's nations. Yeah, no, they're not the threat. No, it's Iran. It's the brown people.
One better than President Trump is aware of that and is prepared to deal with it. And he said time and again that if Iran will not come to terms with America about the nuclear, then bad things will happen. I hope that there will be an agreement, and I hope that this agreement will make sure that there is a strict supervision about any future plans of Iran towards the nuclear. Trump said, and President Biden before him, President Obama before them, they all said that America will not allow Iran to have a nuclear bomb. I hope that the president will take care of this, and in any event...
If you think that Iran is going to be okay with Israel having a nuclear weapon, but them not having one, you're a fucking idiot. No deal will be made. As long as the genocidal maniac nation of Israel has a fucking nuclear weapon, Iran will never stop developing one. If you really give a fuck about Iran not having a nuke, take away Israel's. Take it away. Take ours away. Denuclearize the entire fucking planet. None of this rules for thee and no rules for me bullshit. Put yourself in the shoes of Iranian leadership for a fucking second. Why the fuck would they listen to you? Why? Because you're threatening them with violence? That's more reason to make a fucking nuclear weapon. This is child's play on the world stage. We have a fucking dipshit in the office, and he's getting played like a fucking fiddle. Thank you for the $27 donation, Maximus.
I don't think that this is incumbent upon Israel to attack Iran, because I think that America can deal with it either by negotiations or by a military action in a much more effective manner.
Yeah. Just leave it up to us. Leave it up to us, the red, white, and blue. We'll send our young boys and girls to go fight and die in the sandbox for you, motherfucker. For the problem you fucking started. Yeah, no. Born too early to die in the Middle East. Born too late to die in the Middle East. Born just in time to die in the Middle East. Why don't you go fight? Why don't you go fight, Grandpa, with your fucking liver spots? Why don't you pick up a fucking M27 IAR and you go fight? Why don't we send your kids and your grandkids? No, we're going to send Americans halfway across the fucking planet to go fight for Israel. Make America great again. Thank you for tuning into the Valenti Videos broadcast. The Valenti VOD. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It costs you nothing and it helps me immensely. If you want to help the channel financially, please do. Other than that, if you're watching this live, you stay. If you're watching this pre-recorded, click that video right over there. I promise you, it's a fucking banger.